My name is Marina Cavuoto. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow and clinical neuropsychologist at the Turner Institute of Brain and Mental Health at Monash University. We know that there's a relationship between sleep and dementia, and what we want to understand is whether that relationship is the same for everybody or whether that might be stronger or less strong in people with different types of genes. So we know that sleep is really important for health, physical and mental health, and we also think sleep is important for dementia risk. One of the reasons for that is that toxins build up throughout the day in the brain and they get flushed out of the brain during sleep. When we don't get enough sleep or we don't get adequate quality sleep, this could lead to the build-up of toxins in the brain that cause different types of dementia. So in our research, what we try and do is look at people who are middle-aged to older age and look at them over time to see what features are happening first, whether it's the sleep disturbances happening first or some of those build-up of dementia biomarkers, dementia proteins that occur in the brain. We're interested in looking at the AQP4 gene or the aquaporin-4 gene, and we think that this gene has got something to do with how many water channels there are in the brain, which allow the flushing of toxic waste products out of the brain into the cerebrospinal fluid. So when we sleep, our brains are able to flush out the toxic proteins that build up in the brain throughout the day, and we think that the aquaporin-4 gene has got something to do with that. So it's associated with how many water channels there are in the brain through which this flushing process occurs. And therefore people with different types of this gene who might have more or less water channels would be at a greater risk of developing dementia if they also have poor sleep. So I've recently been fortunate enough to be awarded a grant by the Dementia Australia Research Foundation, and this is the Lucas Papaw Remedies grant. And as part of this grant, I'm going to try and answer this question looking at aquaporin-4 in different cohorts in Australia, and one of those cohorts is the Brain and Cognitive Health study, the BARC cohort study, and we're currently collecting data on that study. We're asking participants to come and volunteer for our studies, and that involves doing cognitive assessments, having an MRI of their brain, and for some people doing a lumbar puncture to get cerebrospinal fluid to assess the proteins, the biomarkers that are associated with dementia, so we can have an understanding of what's happening in their brain, and we'll track these people over time. We'll also be looking at their genetics and getting an idea of what their aquaporin-4 gene type is, as well as doing a variety of sleep assessment. Finally, we'll be doing a genetic analysis on people to work out what variant or what type of the aquaporin-4 gene they have, and that will help us work out whether or not people with different types of the aquaporin-4 gene are at greater or lower risk of dementia in the face of poor sleep. What this might mean for the future, if we show that people with different kinds of the aquaporin-4 gene are at greater risk of developing dementia in the face of poor sleep, is that we could target sleep interventions to those people who might be at greatest risk and therefore stand to benefit the most from a sleep intervention to prevent dementia. I'm really grateful to Dementia Australia for allowing me to look at this research, which hopefully will contribute to better understanding dementia risk reduction and what we can do to try and prevent dementia.